All right, so interesting poll came out that had me thinking about the blue wave the left's talking about. I want to dive into this. We'll talk about the generic ballot and the Senate races here first. Um, First, we'll look at the to Political Morning Consult poll showing for the first time since April 2017, Republicans are leading the Democrats. 39% of registered voters said they would support their local GOP, while 38 said they'd back the Democrat. That lead follows polls showing Democrats leading between 2 and 10 points for the last 3 months. This is an interesting poll. It's the approval of the Republicans have been rising steadily, and it endangers the notion that the Democrats would be able to sweep in and take back the Senate or House, similar to the way the Republicans did after Obama. The only thing about the generic ballot polls is they're taken on a national basis and they ignore more local nuances. So for that, we can look at the actual seats that are up. What you can see in this graphic here is you have the 33 seats that are up. 8 of them are Republican, 23 are Democrat, and 2 of them are independent, the independents being Bernie and Angus King, who will caucus with the Democrats. So it might as well be 25 Democrats. Now, just on this basis, you can see that the Democrats stand to lose a lot more in the midterms. I mean, the Republicans could lose all 8 seats. They'd lose control of the Senate since it's only a 51-49 majority. But it still wouldn't be a hemorrhaging seats like if the Democrats were to get wiped out, which is not likely. They could lose up to 25 seats. That's almost impossible, but it would be a huge loss. They clearly have much more to lose. Now, if you compare where the Democrats and Republicans are up for reelection at to the way the electoral map shook out in 2016, things become a little more interesting. You see that of the Republican incumbents, there's only one who's actually in a state Clinton won. That's Dean Heller in Nevada. Whereas, the other hand, there are 10 Democrats up for reelection in states Trump won. That's a lot of them, and many of them are vulnerable. If we consider those seats, we'll call them vulnerable, the people in places where the other party won the electoral map in the 2016 election. If all those vulnerable seats went, the Republicans would lose one, which would make it a 50-50 split. But then the Democrats would lose 10 seats, which would actually make it 60-40 GOP, which would give the Republicans a supermajority, would make it impossible for Democrats to filibuster, and would allow Republicans to pass just about anything they want through the Senate, as long as they voted in a solid block. This is highly unlikely, but it's not impossible. Let's take a look at Heller first, since he's the only Republican who's sitting in a state that Clinton won. Makes him vulnerable, but he has been cognizant of this. During the Obamacare repeal, he actually voted against the larger repeals, saying, I want to repeal Obamacare in a way that benefits Nevadians, but I think that the current bill falls short. I will not support it in its current form in the Senate, and I'm confident that what the Senate considers and approves will be different from the House bill. We cannot pull the rug out from under states like Nevada that expanded Medicaid. He's very cognizant that he will lose the people, the Democratic voters, if he went ahead and voted for a complete repeal of Obamacare. He's trying to protect his seat. This means he's actually in a halfway decent position to hold on to his seat in 2018. On the other hand, you have Democrats like Joe Donnelly in Indiana. He's sitting in a state Trump won handedly. Mike Pence is Trump's VP and was a popular governor in Indiana. I don't see Joe Donnelly keeping that seat. I almost guarantee he loses it. All Pence does is have to show up and wave at the crowd at the Republicans rally, and Donnelly's done. Claire McCaskill is another Democrat who's in trouble. She's in Missouri. another state that went Trump. She's been hanging on since 2012 by a thread. Her GOP rival made a ridiculously stupid comment that cost him the election that year. As long as there's no gaffes like that and Obama isn't there to kind of shield McCaskill, I doubt she keeps that seat. It's almost impossible. Now there are some Democrats who I think will hold their seat. Heidi Heitkamp is an interesting case. She was seen kind of cozying up to Trump during the tax debates. He had said some nice things about her that might bolster her support among Trump's base and get them to turn out for him. But she's still a Democrat in a relatively red state, North Dakota. It's not the reddest state in the world, but she could be safe just on the virtue that she played nice with Trump, at least early on. And then there's Joe Manchin in West Virginia. Well, West Virginia is a very red state to the point where I believe the governor was a Democrat who got elected and then immediately switched to the Republican Party. But he's been seen making nice with the administration as well. He was the only Democrat willing to stand during the State of the Union, and he's made public comments to the effect that he will support a border wall, which I don't think certainly no other Democratic senator has gone on record as supporting. So those two could retain their seat. There's a couple, Bob Casey in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania only went red this election cycle, so it's possible there's enough of a Democratic base to keep him in office. But I would guess there's a pretty good chance at least 2 seats go Republican and no seats go Democrat, which would expand the lead to 53-47. Still not great. Can't break filibusters all that easily, but it's certainly no blue wave. Angus King is the senator up for re-election from Maine. He's actually in an interesting position. He's an independent, but caucuses with Democrats. Maine split. A couple electoral votes went to Trump, a couple went to Clinton. So it's hard to say where the support is there. Now, Susan Collins is an incredibly liberal Republican, so it kind of says the state leans left even when it elects Republicans. But King's actually being challenged by Eric Brakely, who's more of a Rand Paul Republican, a libertarian conservative. Now, personally, I would much rather see Brakely beat him, but that does put Brakely quite far on the right for a state that seems to prefer left-leaning politicians. But that'll be an interesting race to keep an eye on. I don't know exactly what Brakely's chances are, but it would be it's an interesting place for King to be in a state that split its electoral votes. There's also the question of Jeff Flake retiring. Bob Corker and Orrin Hatch are retiring, but that's Tennessee and Utah. There's no chance they go Democrat. I mean, Mitt Romney's going to be replacing Orrin Hatch in that race. They'll easily vote for him. Whoever walks into Tennessee, if they have an R after their name, they're going to get elected. The question is, Jeff Flake and McCain as well are both soft on immigration. If the Republicans put forward someone who's hawkish or Trumpian on immigration, it could alienate a lot of Latino voters and actually push the seat Democrat, which would be quite interesting. It could lead to, if the Democrats hold everything and the Republicans lose Nevada and Arizona because of that, that will lose them their majority. That could be a real problem. If they just lose Nevada, of course, that's 50-50 and Pence will break the ties. But it'll be interesting to see who rises up to replace Flake. I think Arpaio's talked about it. That would be a terrible decision. That will push those Latino voters and a lot of other voters who are more centrist towards the Democrat. That would be a bad move. You're going to want someone who can split the difference between Trump and in a softer on immigration type candidate. So really what you're looking at is there's almost no chance of a blue wave in the Senate. There's no way they take control of the Senate. That's, like I said, Heller would have to lose. Pretty much whoever replaced Flake would have to lose, and the Democrats would have to hold on to all 10 of those vulnerable seats. It's not happening. There's no way. I I just do not see Donnelly in Indiana and McCaskill in Missouri holding their seat. They're going to lose. So it's going to be on to the Democrats to really stop the bleeding at best. If Flake and Heller go down, McCaskill and Donnelly go down, and we'll break even 51-49 like we are now. If all the vulnerable seats flip, like I said before, Heller will go, but so will 10 Democrats, and that will deliver the Senate to the Republicans, which will be quite a reversal of the blue wave they've been touting. But that's unlikely too. I see the Republicans, I want to say they'll hold all the seats. Heller is a real question mark there, but I guarantee they'll pick up at least two somewhere else. It might be 52-48, 53-47 when the dust settles. I just don't see. There's just no blue wave there. It's just mathematically not possible. Yeah, the Senate doesn't look good for Democrats. The generic ballot is going the Republicans' way. There's just too many vulnerable seats for the Democrats and only one for the Republicans. It won't happen. Now I'd like to take a look at the gubernatorial races and maybe the House races in a later video, but I just thought the Senate is glaringly against the Democrats, and any talk about a blue wave there is beyond wishful thinking. All right, so we are the Republic's walls, and they'll have to come and take it.